wanna get it, man. Get your tail, it's a different lane. When you playing for the winning team, RP to Mr. Wayne's. Bang, bang, we gon' win the game. Cord crank, hit you with your pain.
I be spitting real, be spitting backwash, yeah. So I'ma have to ask you all to back off. It is in my DMs, try to hit me with the caps lock. Cause I'm always beasting on the camera like the Sasquatch. Wait until I blow, y'all gon' see me blast off, yeah. And y'all gon' see in front like they ain't act hard.
Do you remember how beautiful your car was when you first bought it? And now, when you look at the paint in the sun, it's filled with swirls. It didn't hurt my hand, it's not gonna hurt your paint. You're washing four wheels and tires, that water could dry and cause water spots. And here's another little tip. Don't lift the polisher off the paint until that pad slows down or you'll throw splatter all over the place. Lock it into place, that way you don't gotta hold the trigger in the entire time. Here I wanna share a couple tips for cleaning your pad.
We became pretty close and you learn from each other. We also learned a lot from Mike. It was a great class.
Well, every polisher is going to be a little different. Detailing to every car that comes to them.
And they're not making money.
They're not making any money. So you need multiple packages. Fun topic. We're going to be talking about tools. When we talk about all these tools will get the job done.
Please welcome the man, the myth, the legend, Mike Phillips.
Oh, do we have Mike on? Hello, everybody. I think Mike is backstage. He's about to grace us with his presence. There he is. Mike, you're muted right now. Just so you know. But thank you guys for being here. Once again, all of you that are continuously supporting me and this podcast, I truly appreciate you. I am so excited to be here tonight with Mr. Mike Phillips. He is definitely one of the OGs of detailing, and I've already seen so many people comment in the chat how much they've learned from Mike, and him being maybe one of the first people that they started watching in their detailing journey. So I totally agree. I've been watching Mike's videos as well since the beginning, and I have so many questions. One thing I want to preface this chat with you guys: if you have questions, please, if I don't get to them right away, I will star them as I see them coming. I plan at the end of this to have kind of a lightning speed question round where I can get to everybody's questions. So if I don't get to them right away, I'm not ignoring you. Mike, are you ready to go?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. Chat, if you can hear him, let me know. But yes, how are you, Mike?
I'm doing pretty good. When I started thinking about doing this podcast, most of the time, like most people, I'm sitting in a chair in my office with my webcam on, and it's kind of a static shot. It's kind of cool, but I've been staying late working on this big thing back here. And so until this went live, I just been out here sanding, just trying to work through all the more intricate areas. And I just want to bring out some props. So when we're doing this, we could have some fun.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Nothing better than seeing you in action, especially, I had mentioned to you earlier, I'm not a professional by any means. I'm more of an enthusiast, but I love to learn and I want to be a better polisher. And so I'm excited to kind of talk to you tonight and just kind of, get your perspective. But before we get started, I just kind of want to ask, how did you even get into this industry? Because, I'm going back looking at your videos. You have videos from 13, 14 years ago. How long have you been in the industry, and how did you get started?
Well, the nutshell version of that would be, I think I started like most people. I started out as a young boy detailing dad's boat. So I was actually kind of a boat detailer, but we're talking about someone that's like 12, So back in the 70s, everybody had these three products in their garage. All guys did. DuPont rubbing compound, Armor All, and Turtle Wax. You could fix anything with those three products. But I grew up in Oregon. Memorial Day weekend was, the kickoff of summer. So as you're starting to grow up, your brain's full of mush, but you start to think about things. And I started to notice that every time Memorial Day come around, we were hooking up the boat and can't hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh,
That's a delay.
Oh, that's delayed.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I started noticing the boats coming out, and I love to get in the boat out. I want to go water skiing. I want to go fishing. And of course, the boat oxidized. So I would remove the oxidation with the compound, put the troll wax on it, and I put the armor on the plexiglass windshield, and that was called good. And then at some point, I started detailing mom and dad's cars. Dad always had something cool. They usually had something new and something cool. Back then, he had a 65 Ford pickup with a custom brand new white metallic paint job. So I started doing that. But it wasn't until I lost my leg and I went back to college, and I was really struggling in college to find something I wanted to pursue. Believe it or not, I studied oceanology and oceanography and writing and typing. And I ended up doing a lot of writing and typing, and I didn't really care about oceanology or oceanography. My idea of oceanology and oceanography was Jacques Cousteau, scuba diving. But it's not. It's like math. It's all math,
Yeah.
So I didn't like that. And but one day I was working with a guidance counselor, and he asked me to his office, and he says, there's this job opening for this wax company called McGuire's. And I just thought, I don't want to work for no wax company. And then I went ahead and took the job. And this is I'm sharing how I got into the industry. So I covered the territory of Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. I called on body shops, dealerships, and detail shops, and would show them McGuire's products. And then I also had to go to all the car shows in those 3 states and represent McGuire's at a booth. And I also had to do a lot of classes for clubs, car clubs, the Camaro Club, the BMW Club. And so here's what happened by accident. When I would go in and do these little workshops or clinics for these car clubs, show them the basics, how to wash, how to clay, how to use a simple polisher like a Porter cable, put the wax on, real simple. I found there's 3 kinds of people in a car club. There's the kind of people that after watching you do your dog and pony show, they say, hey, that was really cool. I'm going to go buy some of this stuff, and I'm going to do my car this weekend. Okay, that's like 1/3 of the club. The other third will say, hey, that was interesting. Where's the pizza? Okay. And then the remaining 1/3, they will say, wow, that was really interesting. I have no desire to do this myself, but I can see you know what you're talking about. How much will you charge me to detail my car? And so here's the bigger picture point. I've always met, and I've tried this myself, like as a detailer, you go to a car show and you walk around and you see all the cool cars and they're all swirled out, and you try to walk up to the owner and say, hey man, your car's all swirled out. I can detail, make it look great. You just took a swipe at the guy. You made a derogatory comment on his car. That's called trying to get in through the front door. And what I found out is when I taught these classes, and all I'm trying to do is help people, show them a few things about detailing, that was coming in through the back door. And I earned their trust by demonstrating I knew what I was talking about through demonstration. And all you got to do is get one person in that car club, one Mustang owner, and get his car and detail the hell out of it. Then he'll show all his friends, and then pretty soon they're all like, hey, yeah, when can you do my car? Then do it for the Corvette Club, then do it for the Porsche Club. So I used to teach this class at Mobile Tech Expo, and it could be some of the people watching this now or into the future will have taken this class, but it was called How to Become the Recognized Detailing Expert in Your Hometown. And I just shared this process of, wherever you live, there's probably some car clubs. Reach out to them and say, hey, I teach classes. That you got to be confident, because if you've never done this, you're lying. You've never taught a class. Just say it like this. I teach car detailing classes if your club would like something to do. And here's the thing about car clubs. They usually have run out of things to do. So they're always looking for something to do. So, but anyway, that's a class I used to teach. But that's kind of how I got into this industry, because what happened to me was every time I did a class, I had someone ask me to detail their cool car. And if you were to look through all my history of cars I detailed, you rarely see a 1994 Honda 4-door Accord in beige metallic with hubcaps. You'll see a 1969 black L88 Corvette, So,
Yeah.
And I know people would rather work on something cool to make good money than daily drivers. So that's how I kind of got started into the really hardcore detailing side, was because of my background of teaching classes for McGuire's. And then that's what I've tried to help others to do by teaching that class by that topic at Mobile Tech Expo.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. So, what is your take? I'm just interested. I'm going to throw this question out there. There seems to be an ongoing debate between like traditional waxes and modern coatings. Do you think there's still a place for both in the industry?
Yeah, I do. And here's why. Ceramic coatings are great because they become a semi-permanent part of the paint. they won't wear off unless you abrade them off. Kind of like the paint isn't permanent. The paint is only semi-permanent. You could sand it off. It could delaminate through clear coat failure. So it's semi-permanent. Well, the coating is semi-permanent. It's not going anywhere unless you take it off. So that's the benefit to it. And of course, all the other cool features, the glassy look, the water repelling, stays cleaner longer, washes and dries faster. And then it lasts until whenever. But I work on a lot of cars for guys that have garage cleans. Like I just recently did a 1936 Ford Roadster street rod built in the 60s by a gentleman and his father. His father's passed away. He's kept the original paint. Him and his dad sprayed on it. I buffed it all out, and I put a traditional wax on it because that's what he wanted. See, it's not about me. It's about him. And he knows when I get done doing the hard work, which is removing, decades of oxidation out of single stage paint, and then remove the swirls and scratches. He knows when he gets it back from me, all he has to do is go in the garage and do this. And he likes doing that part, it's the easy part, putting the wax on. If I put a coating on, he could use a spray detailer, but he couldn't have that therapeutic, I'm out in the garage on Saturday, listening to the Beach Boys waxing my car, that kind of thing.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So you started at McGuire's, and correct me if I'm wrong here. You've been with 3D, you've been with Auto Geek, Auto Forge, now Dr. Beasley's. Did I miss any companies?
No, I think you pretty much got them all. I went from McGuire's in 2009. Bob McKee, the originator and the founder and the owner of Auto Geek until 2016 when he sold it. He invited me. Something kind of unique happened. I was a trainer for McGuire's up in the Northwest. I quit. I can't remember when, but back about 1986. And it'd be a 1990 or 91. And I went to work for Hewlett Packard in Corvallis, Oregon, their inkjet printer division. And I was in there working in a class 9000 clean room, making inkjet printers. It's kind of a mundane, boring job, but it paid well, had good benefits, and got me out of the car world. One of my friends came by and got on my computer and says, "Here, let me show you something." He started clicking on things. And every time he clicked on it, a different picture showed up. And I go, "What's this?" He goes, "It's called surfing the web." So I was one of the early people on the internet. And anyway, it led me to writing a book, but it led me to writing a how-to book. In fact, I have it right here. Here's my first how-to book, published in 1988.
Let me share the screen so people can, let's see if I can do this here. Let's see. So can you see it on your end? I'm hoping. Can you guys see it? I don't know if I.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So this is the first how-to book I wrote. And I'm trying to get my train of thought. You asked me about, what was the original question?
Oh, I was just asking, from your career, you started with McGuire's.
Oh, okay, so I left McGuire's and I went to work at Hewlett Packard. And that's when I was introduced to the internet. And I was still going to a lot of car shows, teaching people how to polish paint. And someone at one point says, "Mike, you seem to have a pretty good handle on this. Why don't you write a book?" And I actually thought, well, no, I can't write a book. I am not an author. I'm not a writer. And I actually brought these out to show you. When I was growing up, I bought just a ton. You want to come over here and you can hold these, or I'll walk up here. I bought a ton of books to try to figure out how to detail cars. How's that look? Perfect.
Yes, we can see it.
So here's one. I can't believe I still have these. Here's another one. This is from John Kosmowski, the famous custom painter. Here is HP Books, which is a real popular brand for how-to books. Here's another one. And here is another one. And I still got a couple more. So my point is I was always reading these books, trying to figure out how to become a better detailer. And to be honest, I never really found anything I could take out in the garage and do for myself. So I thought, okay, I'm going to write a book. And so I wrote this book. And then one of Barry McGuire's best friends came by a car show I was working at and bought a copy, called up Barry McGuire and said, "Hey, there's a guy up here in Oregon selling a book on how to use your products." And about a couple of weeks later, I get this phone call, and it's Barry McGuire. And he says, is this Mike Phillips? And I go, yeah. And at the time I was driving a 1966 Chevy milk truck with a 396 big block and slider doors. So it was noisy and rattly. And I said to Barry, hey, Barry, can you give me a second? I got to park my milk truck so I can hear you. He thought, he thought that was funny. I was in a milk truck. It was cool. You can Google 1966 Chevy milk truck at Mike Phillips and probably pull a picture of it up.
Goodness.
But he says, Mike, I want you to do me a favor. I want you just to rip out the first 4 chapters and mail them to me. So I did. And about a week later, I got another phone call from Barry. He says, how'd you like to fly down to California and interview to become the corporate writer for my company? And I said, yes. And so I did. And then they hired me. So for about a year and a half, I was the corporate writer for McGuire's. I took over all of Barry's writing duties. And that meant labels. Like I've written a lot of the McGuire's products. I've written the label copy front and back, how-to articles, technical bulletins. I did radio jingles, just anything that needed text. I was in charge of it. And while I was there, they had a 3-car garage and they weren't really doing anything with it. So imagine McGuire's, this huge car wash company with the garage in Car Mecca, 55 miles south of LA, Car Mecca.
Yeah.
And I went to my manager at the time, Mike Pennington. I says, what do you guys do at the garage? He said, nothing. And I said, can I teach a class there? And he goes, yeah, go for it. So I started teaching classes. I brought up their whole detailing class program because they didn't have nothing when I got there. And what happened was I started sharing all the pictures from my classes on the internet. So the internet was a new thing back then. And these things called discussion forums popped up. So I was really good at taking pictures, cropping and resizing and uploading and inserting pictures and then writing the copy. And it got really popular. Like McGuire's even rebuilt their whole training center because of how popular they got. They took down the walls and everything and redid it all. And but this takes me back to the next step, AutoGeek. So someone at AutoGeek called me and says, hey, can you come out here to Florida and teach that class that you teach on the West Coast, on the East Coast? So I said, yeah. So I went out there. And after teaching a 1-day class, Bob McKee, he says, why don't you come back to my office and talk to me when you're done cleaning up? And so I did. And he asked me, what would it cost to peel me away from McGuire's? And I wrote down my salary on a Post-it note and shoved it over to him. And his eyes got all big and said, really? And I go, yeah. And he, without hesitation, he goes, I'll give you that 5-year contract and a TV show.
Wow.
And, I've always liked teaching classes for like 20 or 30 people. And now I had a chance to teach a class for 30 million people. So of course I jumped on that.
Yeah.
And so I uprooted, left California, moved to Florida. We did our first TV show called What's in AutoGeek's Garage. And then a few years later, we did another TV show called Competition Ready. The AutoGeek's Garage wasn't really what I was thinking of. It's kind of like me, or like I was doing like Dennis Gage or some of the other guys, where I went around and interviewed people with really cool cars. And it had a little detailing insets, little segments in it. But when we did Competition Ready, a lot of people don't know this, but our producer was a guy named Bud Budstrom. Bud Budstrom was the producer for Chip Foose's show. What's this show? Overhauling.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Overhauling.
And Rod.
Yeah.
Co-host was his host, Adrian, Janet. And for this show, then we started actually detailing and showing people detail cars. But the problem we ran into there was Bud's idea was to show me working on the most expensive cars in the world to really establish and nail my credibility in the TV world industry. And then after that, we were going to start working on, something like this, a 69 Chevelle, things that the average car guy owns, because they're the people that buy stuff. And we never got to that point. They killed the show after 2 years, even though we had better ratings than Car Crazy with Barry McGuire. We got his old time slot on Speed Vision, and now it's Motor Trend.
Yeah.
And our viewership was even higher than his. So we had a lot of viewers, but the company at the time decided to kill the show. And the next year, we were actually going to start going from things like the 1925 round door Rolls Royce at the Peter Museum, only one in the world, estimated to be worth 50 million. Instead of working on that, working on, your basic car guy type cars that are actually being driven. So I always felt kind of bad that we missed out on the next year on that. And then after working for McGuire's for a number of years, without going into details, it became very hard to go into the building because of the environment that was there. And I always liked Tunch, so I went to work for 3D, and I really liked working for Tunch and 3D. Actually, Tunch actually built a brand new custom detailing classroom and class here in Stewart, And then he sold the company. No problem. I don't got a problem with that. He had a custom yacht built. He wanted to go float around the Isles of Greece on his big yacht. So he sold
Yeah.
his company to a private equity group. And the first thing they did was broke my contract. So I left. A lot of people don't know the behind the scenes story, but that's why I left. And then the Auto Forge, that was just kind of a blip on the radar. And to me, that stuff's all in the rear view mirror. And after there was a time when I was just out there, kind of like most guys, just detailing cars. And Jim found out I was a free agent. And he told me he'd always wanted me to be a part of his team. So I joined up with Dr. Beasley's. And then we opened up this really nice shop right here in Stewart. And this is where I teach all our classes, car
Yeah.
handling and boat detailing.
And that's in Florida, correct? Stewart?
Stewart, Florida, about 30
Florida.
miles north of West Palm Beach Airport.
Wow, that is pretty awesome. So, I mean, obviously you have been in the game for many, many years. How has your approach to detailing evolved over the years as the products and techniques have changed and evolved? Have you changed your techniques and your systems? Have you kind of stayed with the same system? Does old school systems, are they still relevant? How has
Well,
that changed?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, my detailing style kind of evolved as new tools came out. I mean, I remember when all we had was the Rotary, we had the Cyclo, we had what was called a GEM. Some of you older guys remember the GEM, GEM. It's a big aluminum orbital polisher. And then, can you walk back there and grab my old TOB? It's the big old steering wheel polisher. So we had four things. We had the Rotary, we had the Cyclo, but you wouldn't know about the Cyclo because back when the Cyclo was invented in the 1950s, there wasn't an internet. So the only way you know about it is someone physically showed it to you and found out where you could buy it. The internet changed everything. So yeah, just to bring this over. So we had the Rotary, we had the Cyclo, we had what's called a GEM. Then we had these funky looking things.
Oh,
a lot of people have
wow.
seen these.
I've never even seen one of those.
Oh yeah, it's called a TOB, traditional orbital polisher. It's like a big steering wheel. It's
Okay.
got one button and a big bonnet. And here's the deal. Back when these were popular and cars had single stage paint, they actually would work. You could put a compound on that bonnet and chew off that old dead oxidized paint, switch bonnets to throw wax and make it shine again. It kind of worked. But when clear coats came out, these things were too slow and clear coats were scratch sensitive. That's a term Barry Maguire coined in the 1990s. And they just were ineffective. They become what we call wax spreaders. But my detailing style was, this is my first original Rotary polisher. I bought this in 1987.
Wow.
And I want
That's
you
an
to
antique.
listen to it. I used it until the gears completely wore out. So listen, see that?
Okay.
They're worn out. The size of the sand cast aluminum and the plastic handle, you can see where I wore the ribs off. I wore this down to look like a piece of chrome. I used to come home at night and I would be bleeding right here and right here where I would rub against that textured aluminum surface for, hours and hours. And then, I was just really good with the Rotary. And then sometime in the 80s, Barry Maguire and Richard Griot of Griot's Garage.
Okay.
They both claim to have introduced the Porter cable to the detailing world. So I think they probably did about the same time. Maybe they weren't talking back and forth. But the Porter cable was a real game changer because it was a wood sander. I have an article on this. I got an article on everything. It was basically a wood sander with a Velcro backing plate. And it was used in the wood sanding industry to sand down wood. And someone, Barry or Richard, discovered if they stuck a foam pad on there and turned that sucker up to the 6, you could actually take swirls out of the paint with a wood sander.
Wow.
And so all the tools that we all enjoy nowadays, they're resting on the shoulders, basically, of the Porter cable. The Rupes, the Griot's Boss tools, the Shine Mates, the Max Shines, the Flex. I mean, there's just so many great tools in the market, but really it was the Porter cable, I think, that was a real game changer because it allowed the average person to de-swirl a car using 110 volts and a tool that they could use safely because you really couldn't do any harm with it. It's what's called a 8mm free spinning random orbital polisher. And I did a TV show one time. You can still find this. I was on Two Guys Garage with Brian Fuller. And I actually took this polisher, a Porter cable. I took my hand and I stuck it on the hood of a car and I pushed it down as hard as I could at full speed. And then I showed my hand to the camera and there was no blood. And I says, look, if it ain't going to hurt me, it ain't going to hurt your car paint. But that's kind of an analogy about how safe this tool was. And
Yeah.
it was a real game changer. But over the years, I got away from the Rotary for a while because you could do so much with an orbital. But the thing is I detail a lot of SIV, special interest vehicle, like this one. It's got a custom paint job. It's thicker. So I can get away with using a rotary old school, where nowadays cars, the paint is so thin coming out of the factory that rotary will pad on those. You probably, if you didn't burn through the clear, you'd probably leave it so thin it would have clear coat failure. So my style has changed over the years, but I've kind of gone back to I'm a rotary guy, then an orbital guy to finish out hologram free. But it is amazing how many great tools, pads, and chemicals are on the market today. It makes it easier to be a pro than it ever was. And it
Yeah.
actually used to be you had to have some talent to get a swirl-free finish in full sun on a black car. But nowadays, I mean, I've had little kids go to my classes. I had old ladies and old men take my classes, and look, they all turn out a flawless finish by the time they're done taking the class.
That's amazing. Now, speaking of, the Rotary and the DA, I was going to ask you, the question that a lot of people ask, do you cut with the Rotary? Can you cut with the DA? Can you finish with the Rotary? I know some people, that's just one of those arguments that people
Yeah.
have. What is your
Well,
take
yeah.
on that?
Yeah, here's my take. First of all, I never argue with people because you never change anybody's mind. And over the years, I always meet a lot of alpha male ego details. I am so great, and they say, I can do every car with the rotary. If you can't, there's something wrong with you. But here's what I kind of interject into that conversation is paint is different. Some paint is more polishable than other paint. So I think you probably can get a hologram swirl-free finish using nothing but a rotary. I've got articles with pictures of cars I've detailed with rotaries only in full sun, and that's the test. But I always remember I detailed a 1958 Impala about 30 years ago for a couple. And back then, the only thing we had was the rotary. That's the only thing I had. And it looked great when I gave it back to them. 2 or 3 years later, I saw it out in the sun, and you can see the hologram show up. So here's the point about that, is all these people that think they can leave a flawless finish using nothing but a rotary, I never see them prove it. Okay, here's how you prove it. You work on black or something really dark. You chemically strip the paint to pull any fillers or oils out, and you pull it out in full sun and show everybody. What I see people doing is talk about it. They talk about it, but I never see them do that. And I've done it and written articles on it. So I think it can be done. But what I always teach people is why take a chance that maybe you're not seeing them because of the polishing oils or the wax or the coating that's on there. You can't see them, and then have it show up years down the road and bite you in the butt and ruin your reputation. When you could simply just grab any DA polisher, you can go down to Harbor Freight and buy one for $65. And after using the rotary, switch over to an orbital, and the orbital will work out the scratch pattern we call holograms. And there's actually really smart guys that probably have access to the right kinds of tools to look at the paint close up. And they actually, I'm not going to say any names, but I'm pretty confident they would say that no matter how good you think you are at the rotary, if you were to look at this paint close up like we're able to, you'd see the scratch patterns leaving. The only thing that does not put a scratch in paint is blowing on it. That won't scratch paint. As soon as you start touching it, the potential is there to leave a mark. So if you got a pad spinning like this for hours, I mean, what's the chances it might be leaving a mark? So I just don't waste my time arguing with people, and people can do what they want to do. But I always start with the rotary, but I finish with the DA.
Okay, fair enough. So you were mentioning your class. I have heard a rumor. I've never taken one of your classes, although I hear such great things. And if I ever get the opportunity, I'm going to jump on it. I am in California, so I'm 3,000 miles away. But I mean, it would be an absolute dream to be able to do that. But I have heard in your classes, they are super hands-on and you don't sit down. What can somebody expect taking one of your courses? What is it like, really?
So when someone signs up for my classes, I send them out an email called Important Information. And there's a number of people watching this class that'll attest to that. And it gives you the address, the start time, what's for lunch. I let people take videos and pictures if they want to. Some classes won't allow that. I just because I know that's how people remember stuff. Instead of writing down, they take a video. So I don't care. And but in that important information email, it says, please wear comfortable work clothing. Okay. It says, please do not show up with flip-flops or wear high heels. And I've had guys show up in flip-flops and girls wearing high heels. That's not this kind of class. There's no chairs in this classroom. There's literally, there is a PowerPoint, but all the PowerPoint is that it'll have a slide showing this car, if that's the car the class is working on. And then I'll plug in the products they're using so they can take a picture instead of trying to remember, what did we use on the white car? Oh, just take a picture. Now they can remember.
Yeah.
And that's all the PowerPoint is for. Plus it looks good on the wall. In fact, I'm creating a write-up right now for my last class in February. And in that class, they sanded down, they hand sanded and machine sanded a 1934 Ford 3-window coupe, then buffed it out till it's flawless. But I took a picture across the hood, which the TV screen is right there behind it, and you could see the PowerPoint, which is the 34 and the set, the things we're going to use, and then here's the car. So the PowerPoint isn't like we're going to sit there for hours while I talk and put you to sleep. It's just to make a quick identifier for what it is. But yeah, I start my classes at 7:30. In the email, it says get here at 7. If you want to donate, you want to park your car, because we start at 7:30. We don't talk anymore. We get going.
Action.
And the first tool people learn how to use in my class is the rotary polisher. But I bring in cars that have custom paint that's really swirled out, so it's a safe learning experience. And then we move over to orbital polishers and then ceramic coatings. And that's the first topic. And usually my classes will detail at least 6 cars the first day. We cover 3 topics, and each topic gets a minimum of 2 cars. Sometimes when I have big classes, like 20, 25, 30 people, then I just bring in more cars. I can manage 30 people. What I need is power, extension cords, tools, and cars.
Yeah.
There's no demo hoods. There's no test panels here. And we start the class at 7:30, and it takes us till about lunch or 1 o'clock to get the first 2 cars done, because everybody's learning to work together and how the class rolls. After that, boom, they just go fast, because the people know to put the cord over the shoulder, to put the product, don't turn it on in the air and throw it everywhere. They've learned all the basics in that first set of cars. And so that's the first day is we go over. What I teach is I teach the 3 packages every detailer should offer their customers, or if you're a do-it-yourselfer, the 3 approaches you would want to know to take care of your own cars. And those are show car detailing. So that's something like this, where you're going to do multiple steps to get a flawless finish. And some do-it-yourselfers have that cool car they want to do show car detailing too. Then the second topic is called mid-range package. So if you're a detailer, a lot of people don't want to pay for a show car detailing. Maybe they just got a mundane SUV, but they want a nice job. So that's like 1 or 2 steps of paint correction and ceramic coatings. And then the third topic, or the next set of cars, we learn 1-step ceramic AIO paint correction. So how to, after you've washed and clay, knock a car out in a single step. And that'll take us all of the day. There's only about a short 15, 20-minute lunch breaks. There are no, hey, it's 10 o'clock. If you need a break, go take one. I'm not stopping the class for you. But there is a lunch break. And then the next day is sanding. And I always bring in, there's no hoods here to sand on. I bring in the kind of cars that get sanded. So everybody hears this term sanding, or wet sanding, or dry sanding, or block sanding. And a lot of people don't know what that means. So here, let me help you. 95% of the cars that are sanded are cars coming out of custom body shops with a custom paint job. It's the kind of car like this that someone would spend the money to fix it up. And after the engine and the suspension and the interior is all done, at some point it goes into the paint booth and it gets a paint job. People aren't getting their Hondas and Toyota Camrys and things like that custom painted. So nobody should be sanding on those kinds of cars. But I bring in the kind of car that should actually be sanded, something with a fresh custom paint job and lots of orange peel. And so the Saturday class, or the Sunday class, it starts again at 7:30. And basically we just start out, I go over the tips and techniques for what I'm doing here, how to hand sand wet by hand. Then we go to dry sanding. Then we're back to the rotary buffer to pull out 100% of the sand marks. That's my criteria. That car does not go to the next step until all the sanding marks are gone. And then we pull out orbital polishers with foam pads to remove the holograms, so we put a ceramic coating on it. And there's some classes where I've had 3 cars that got sanded, buffed, and coated in a single day. So, these are very intense classes, I think it's a lot of fun. And to be honest, there's a chair over there. If someone needs a chair, there's a chair. It's a little roll around chair. You can sit down. You're in Washington. In my September class last year, this is a great story. I had a gentleman, at the time he was 77 years old.
Wow.
And he flew out here from Portland, Oregon to Florida to take my 1-day class, which is basically just the first day of a 2-day class. And the reason why is he was a janitor at a public school and he wanted to retire and start his own detailing business. So, you think about what he spent: airline tickets, hotel, rental car, cost of class, meals on the road adds up.
Yeah.
And I'll just come out here to take a class with me because he wanted that hands-on experience. He didn't want to sit in a chair. And I've always found that the kind of people that are interested in detailing, they tend to learn better by doing, not sitting in a chair, looking at the wall, looking at a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So, but that's how my classes roll. And my boat classes are the same way. I've seen only a few people teach boat classes in my life. I taught my first formal boat class in 2013, all photo documented, by the way. I document all my classes to the 9th degree. But I've seen other people, they bring in like a bass boat or a flash boat. That's a horrible learning experience because it's just got a tiny little hole and you're all scrunched over trying to work on it. I bring in huge center consoles that are in horrible shape. And that way I can teach the most topics. If I brought in a new boat, I could show you how to use a spray wax. There's nothing to learn. So I like to bring in boats that are dark colored gel coats that have turned white with oxidation. And then we start out machine wet sanding with gear-driven orbitals. Then we switch over to machine dry sanding with gear-driven orbitals. Then to the rotary polisher and a wool pad, then to a foam pad with the orbital polisher to remove the holograms and create a show car finish on a boat. Then we put the ceramic coating on. And we knock these out. I brought in a lot of my classes have had 2 center consoles at the same time. So I'll run my classes up to like 20, 24, 26 people. And if you do the math, say I got 24 people and I got 2 boats, that's 12 people on a boat, 6 people on a side. It's very doable. But I also crack the whip, you know, and I lead by example. I always am part of the process because I never ask people to do something I wouldn't do myself. So I always lead by example in all my classes. But that's what they're like. And I tell people in that email I send out called important information, it says right on there, please get a great night's sleep the night before the class. I know you're going to sleep great all the other nights.
Yeah, I bet, right? So you only then offer classes in Florida, I'm assuming.
For the most part, the corporate office, Dr. Beasley's in Chicago, they actually teach some really great classes there. There's a 1-day paint correction, ceramic coating. There's matte detailing because we sell a lot of matte coatings and matte washes. So there's a matte class there, and they're just about ready to start up window tinting and PPF classes. So that's all in Chicago. Out here, I do the 2-day car detailing and the 2-day boat detailing.
Okay. So you just mentioned, matte painting, which kind of leads me into my next question. I'm a beginner, so I'm terrified of matte paint. So how do you handle sensitive or high-end finishes like matte or satin paints different from the high glossy paints? What?
Yeah, so matte finishes are an enigma, kind of. You're right. The thing about matte finishes is you have to step back and get away from mechanical aggressive type actions like rubbing with the compound or claying with the clay bar, and everything has to become chemical cleaning, chemical decontamination. And the best thing you can do, the best thing you can do for matte is when it's brand new is get it ceramic coating with a matte specific coating because you don't want to create gloss. Matte finishes have texture. You don't want to fill those in and smooth them over so to make the paint look glossy. So we make the largest line of matte paint coatings. And actually, we're the provider for a lot of the OEM. A lot of people don't know this, but we provide matte paint coatings to Kia, Mercedes-Benz, BMW. I can't think of the other one. It's another big car company, but it's all on our website. You can find out about it there. But that's a good testament to the credibility of our products was when the OEM includes a 5-gallon bucket with all of our stuff in the trunk of all these matte cars that get sold. And I know it happens because I get called all the time. Hey, Mike, I just bought this matte car and it's got a bucket full of stuff. How do I use it? So, but the most important thing is just don't ever rub hard, and a couple of weeks ago, I got a person asked me a question, hey, I got a scratch in my matte paint. How do I fix it? Well, you don't. Don't put a scratch in matte paint. And one of the things I teach all the time, Craig, could you do me a favor? You know where I keep my tweezers? Go grab me a couple. Oh, right there on where you see that paper towel holder, there's a tray there. Someone asked me at Mobile Tech Expo a couple of years ago, Mike, if you could just share one thing, what's the most important thing you could share with people? And I said, keep the things that touch paint clean and uncontaminated. And to that end, I keep tweezers down here. And when I inspect my towels, I look at them with my eyes, I feel them with my hands, and if I find anything sharp and pokey, I can't get up my fingers, I use the tweezers. And when they get to that cabinet over there, I have confidence I could go grab any of those towels and wipe down a black car and not put a scratch in it. And this is important because if you think about it, if you buy a brand new car, and let's just say the car you bought has actually got a flawless finish, it just came off the assembly line. But a lot of times, the dealerships, they wash them and scratch them up. But pretend you got a flawless finish on a brand new car. And then a couple years later, you look at it, the sun is full of swirls of scratches. So the question is, how did they get there? Okay. Now, the way they got there is the way we touch the paint. And we touch it primarily 3 ways: wash mitts, drying towels, microfiber wiping towels. And could you hand me a microfiber towel, like one of the blue ones over there? And I was around in the 70s when we used bath towels, t-shirts, diapers, and cheesecloth.
Yeah.
And the reason we switched over to microfiber, in fact, I have the first Meguiar's microfiber towel in my antique wax collection. But the reason we switched over to using microfiber instead of cotton towels, t-shirts, and bath towels is because the microscopic nature of the fibers helps the towel to do 2 things: A-B, absorb, A-D, adsorb. Absorb means to wick into itself. Adsorb means to wick onto itself. They excelled at wiping compound, polish, wax, spray detailer off a finish compared to anything else on the market. But for the same reason that they excel at pulling stuff off the paint, they excel at trapping dried leaves, sticks, dead bugs, and rocks into the weave. And sometimes if you got a big fluffy towel like this, you might not be able to see it. Then you take it and you wipe down your car and you scratch the hell out of it. So I'm always teaching people to keep your wash mitts, your drying towels, and your wiping towels clean and clean is one thing. Put them in the wash machine, pull them out, they're clean. Uncontaminated is the key thing, and it's really hard to do. You got to put some effort into it. But if you can do that, you have a better chance of keeping a flawless finish on your car.
Yeah. So you're working for Dr. Beasley's now. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Beasley's focuses a lot on like ceramic and nano-based technology. What
Yes.
inspired that shift from the traditional detailing products to this whole nanotechnology and this whole primer, polish? And I feel like it hasn't really caught on in the rest of the industry, like primer polishes. I know a few companies have one. So
Yes.
what caused that shift, and what is so great about a primer polish?
Okay, so first of all, we don't want to be lumped in with anything else on the market called a primer, because all of
Okay.
those, to my knowledge, use the same oils and solvents that any other compounded polish uses. Ours uses for a base. So when you have a compound or a polish, there is the powders, the abrasives, and then there's the formula, the wet stuff. And then you mix it together and you got an end product. This is nanogel, ceramic nanogel. It looks like mint green pudding. It's very, very viscous. This is the carrying agent for our abrasive technology, and it will do nothing to hinder the bonding of a coating to the paint. So you don't have to use a panel wipe after you use our parts. You go right to the coating. In fact, it's helping to make a surface that the coating can attach to, so the coating will last longer. When it comes to the abrasive technology, I have 3 jars of our abrasive technology. And the thing about abrasive technology is, I know a lot of people probably think it's all kind of the same, and in some aspect it is, because most abrasive technology comes from a company called Ferro or Saint-Gobain. And that means a lot of stuff that's on the market is the same abrasive technology, different color, different scent, and different label, but same kind of stuff. So a lot of it is the same. Ours is unique to us. There's nobody else in America that has our abrasive technology. So it's very unique. And the thing about it is these things, imagine, this is a bad analogy, but imagine a golf ball. It's perfectly round, but it has these little divots on it. Okay, ours are perfectly round with facets, so then divots are flat. And that makes it have very sharp points for cutting, but it cuts very evenly because it's perfectly round. And our products this is 45. It actually comes as a liquid in a slurry. So it's 1/2 of a micron. So a human hair is about 90 microns in diameter. So our next product is actually NSP 95. And the little powder in here, and I can show you this one. So here's some powder. And each one of those little tiny particles are an absolutely perfect circle with facets cut on them, the size of the diameter of the hair. And then we have something larger. This is NSP 150, which is 1.5 microns. And now when you feel this, you can actually kind of start to feel a little bit of bite to it, because this is a sharp abrasive. It's very, very tiny. And then we just launched 2 brand new products at Mobile Tech Expo. And this one's called Core Cut and Core Cut Plus. And I'm going to actually, after spending more time with Core Cut Plus, I think we should put a label not for factory finishes. It cuts so fast. Anyway, these are our new product, but they're all based upon nanotechnology. There's no conventional solvents in them or oils or fillers. So it's just the abrasives and the nanogel. And so they're very different, very unique, and they're nothing like any other surface on the market. You can go right to a ceramic coating, or if you wanted to, a car wax or synthetic paint sealant right after use. There's no reason to strip the surface. So it saves you a step. And a lot of things some guys don't understand is if you're working on soft paint, maybe even medium paint, and you go to use a panel wipe. So what's a panel wipe? A panel wipe's a solvent. A lot of people think of IPA or mineral spirits or somewhere in that family. That is not a good lubricant. Like you wouldn't drain the oil out of your car's engine and fill it full of IPA. It would seize a bearing. It's not a good lubricant. And you got all these people that have polished the hell out of a car and they're spraying it down with something that's not a good lubricant and wiping it off, and they're probably marring the hell out of the paint in preparation to put the coating on because they have to get the oils off so the coating will bond. So with our stuff, you can avoid that whole risk of remarring the paint that you just spent hours buffing out because you don't got to do the panel wipe stuff.
Okay, that makes sense. I haven't tried any of the, NSP polishes, but I've always been really intrigued by them. So I was just interested because I don't know that I understood the whole nanotechnology, concept. Why do you think if it's so much better for the paint, which I totally, I mean, from what I hear, it sounds like it, why has it not caught on in the rest of the industry? Because I don't.
It takes a while for something new to get out in the market. It costs more. A Rolex costs more than a Timex, but most people say the Rolex is better. Everybody's got their own thing. Some people like the Tesla. To me, that's kind of a quirky car. I like an old Chevy truck.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
but our products are kind of
Preference.
like the Tesla of the compounds and polishes in the market, and everything else is kind of a truck.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, what is one common mistake that you see even experienced detailers make in terms of ceramic coatings or paint correction? Is there a trend that you see with people making mistakes? Well, what would that one mistake be? Have you noticed or witnessed any mistakes people make in general?
I think probably the worst thing about ceramic coatings is if people overpromise, what they're going to do. The masses, the unwashed masses, as I like to say, the average person out there, by now the term ceramic coating has hit the tipping point. It's went up the hill. So a lot of people know the term. They don't know what it means. They know what things like car wax. But some people actually think that when they get their car coated, that now they no longer have to be careful. But that's not true. The coating will scratch just like the car paint will scratch. So if you run your freshly ceramic coated car through a spinning brush style car wash, not only will it scratch the coating, it'll scratch the paint. And you just need every detailer just needs to spend some time to educate the customer on the ceramic coating, the benefits, the features, and then most important, how to properly maintain it. And the best way, of course, is to carefully hand wash. And if you can't hand wash, then the next best bet would be to take it through a touchless wash. I mean, there is another option: hire a professional detailer to wash your car for you. Most detailers that can do this are charging really good money, so that kind of cuts out a lot of their potential customers unless they live in a demographic area with a lot of people with good money. So,
Yeah.
but I think it's just on the education side, just over promising and in the end under delivering.
So let's say you are speaking to a beginning detailer, somebody who has just started, learning how to polish or is, learning how to get better at it. What method are you teaching them? What is the safest method to teach someone who is, trying to become more efficient? What's a
So I can't
system?
remember that. The first tool I teach my class is the
Okay.
Rotary. Now,
So the
I
Rotary.
have some peers in the industry that probably cringe when I say that, but let me just bring up an old saying, okay? And isn't there truth to old sayings? There's an old saying that goes like this: use the right tool for the job. Okay, well, sometimes the right tool is a Rotary. And before you can use it, you got to know how to use it, and you have to have confidence. So in my classes, I start people on the Rotary, and look, I'm never going to make a person an expert in a class. What I do is I try to give people a foundation they can build on. But when people leave my class, they're comfortable with the Rotary, they know how to use the Rotary, and they know when to use the Rotary. Okay, so and then after that, it's orbitals. But if I was just to give advice, I would tell someone that was, whether they're a young person or an old person, because I found a unique phenomenon taking place with my classes over the last 10 years now. And that's a lot of the people that take my class are people my age. They're retiring from their career job. They don't want to go home and do this, nothing. And so
Yeah.
they want to start a detailing business. I mean, back in the 50s and the 60s and even the 70s, if a guy was a gearhead, a car guy, he could open up a mechanic shop, replace carburetors and heads, reinstall a camshaft. Nobody can do that stuff now. We all take our car to the dealership. So if you can't do the mechanical side and you want to be in the car world, what's left? Detailing. So I
Yeah.
have a lot of older guys that take my detailing class, and I have a lot of young guys. But if I were just to give some verbal advice, I'd say try to get to any class you can, a Rupes class, a Todd Cooperrider class, a Brenny Doyle class. Get to a class where you've got people that have established reputations. You're going to learn something. It's going to flatten out that learning curve. You're going to have a better chance of being successful and an even better chance of avoiding mistakes. So to me, one of the most important things is not just to teach people what to do, but what not to do.
Not to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that something? If we all learned what not to do first, right? But sometimes I feel like it's trial by error as well. Like, how do you learn whether, you know what I mean? If you don't
No,
ever make the mistake, how do you know whether or not to fix it? You know?
that's true. And I like this quote from Eleanor Roosevelt. It goes like this: try to learn from other people's mistakes. You may not live long enough to make them all on your own.
Oh, there you go. Oh, I like
I,
that.
I have made
I
a
like
ton of mistakes. I've burned through pain. I've made a ton of mistakes. So when people take my class, they get the benefit of learning my mistakes so they don't have to make them. Because I always incorporate, I do what I call a brain dump. And every class is different because the cars change. I mean, the last class I had two 1930, the class I had is about two 1932 Fords. I had a 1962 Chevy Biscayne. I had a brand new Corvette. I mean, I bring in a wide variety of cars. And each car has different problems. Like over here, if you want to pan over there, you can show this Mustang. It's still here from my last class. I brought this 2013 Mustang in,
Oh,
not to
wow.
teach paint correction, but to teach people the correct way to clean a canvas cloth top.
Ah,
There's a right way and a wrong way. And, I actually want to go and people I know that teaches that in detailing class. And that's mixed in with all those other things I just shared with you, the three different approaches or
yeah.
packages. And I had a class that we did all that, and we covered how to use a rotary to machine polish a flexible plastic back window in a 65 Corvette until it was clear. It was yellow when I got here. So
Wow.
I teach a lot of different topics, but I always find it a way to incorporate what I call a brain drain, and that includes teaching how to avoid mistakes.
So now that you mention it, what is a proper way to clean a drop top?
Oh, it's actually there's nothing special to it. You just gotta, it's kind of like if I told you what to do, you go, oh, of course that's what to do. Until I tell you, you're like, oh, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is the brush. Tell you what, walk down there and you'll find my ragtop brushes. You can use a horsehair brush,
Okay.
or Ragtop launched their own line of brushes, and they partnered with the Hartz company. Hartz is the manufacturer of like 90% of cloth top convertibles in the world. Okay, so if you're Ragtop and you make a product to clean and protect canvas, and the company that makes the canvas says, I want to partner with you to come out with the brush because no, they're green. You'll see them. They're laying on the table. They're green. Um, because apparently, at some point, people have to figure out that, hey, the reason our tops are starting to look fuzzy and not last long and lose their waterproofing is because people are using the wrong brush. They're using bristles that are stiff, pokey, and hard.
Mm,
So you want to use something like this. This is a ragtop brush. The bristles are 2 inches long. The tips are
okay.
flat or they're split. So when you're rubbing this over the canvas weave, you don't tear up the fibers and make it fuzzy. Because once you do that, it's game over. You can't fix it. And it opens the top up. Now it's very hard to waterproof it. Now you got a problem with mold and mildew because moisture can stay into the top. So it starts with using the right brush, a pH bounce cleaner, and then applying some sort of waterproofing and UV protectant on afterwards. And I got pictures of this. Like when we were done at the top, I put a plastic drop cloth over it and then cut around wherever the top was. So when we used the Dr. Beasley's fabric coating pro on there, but we didn't want to get any of the mist onto the paint because now we got to get out the paint. We already polished the paint. So I showed how to tape the car off and do that. So it's a kind of an involved process, but there's a right way, there's a wrong way. And I'm a member of the IDA, and I'm on one of the committees for coming up with the standard operating procedures for detailers. And we're tackling the topic of how to correctly, safely clean a cloth top, canvas top. So it is a point of interest, and it's something every detailer should know how to do, or they shouldn't be doing it at all.
Yeah, I agree. So you have seen this detailing industry just change. I mean, I'm sure, right? A tenfold. What what do you see for the future in this industry? Because I mean, what we have nanotechnology, we have this ceramic, self-healing ceramic coatings. What is next? Do you feel like we've come to kind of a standpoint in technology, or do you feel like we will still see innovation?
Oh, I think we'll still see innovation. This question comes up, and a lot of times you're thinking about what's the new thing going to be. So back in the I think it's back in the early 2000s, Nissan and a couple companies were experimenting with what was called self-healing paint. And basically the paint was kind of like rubberized. And so when it got hot, it would kind of like mold itself back together, but you couldn't polish it. So where's that technology today? It's gone. So it's a great idea on paper, but it does not execute well. So here's how my brain thinks is they probably will come up with some really cool stuff like self-healing paint, but it doesn't bother me because I work on a whole bunch of this stuff, and there's a lot of this stuff out there.
Yeah.
And so I think I'll always be busy, so I don't concern myself with this type of work ever going away. I have seen a few times when there's been robots that have sanded, and robots, you see them polishing the hood, and it goes, okay, my job's going to go away because I'm going to be replaced by a robot. But look, they can get things to do that for a nice big area. But earlier today, I was standing in around here, and you got to be able to get in there with your eyes and see what you're doing, feel the tactical pressure, look and see if the orange peel's gone so you can move on to a new area. I'm just not sure a robot's ever going to get to that point. Again, maybe big flat panels on a Suburban, but nothing else. So
Yeah.
they're not going to take our jobs.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know, right? So I don't know much. I'll be honest with you. I don't know much about the Dr. Beasley's line except for the NSP. That's what I hear of. What would you suggest somebody who's trying the line for a first time? What do you suggest as a few products that they should, try first?
I would say our easiest to use products would be our NSP 95. It's
Okay.
basically a fine cut polish mixed together with the right pad and tool. You can get some moderate paint correction out of it, but it's easy to work with. And right afterwards, you could go right to coating. So it's really more of a product that would be targeted as a second step to something more aggressive. Or if you've got a brand new car and it really doesn't have a lot of defects, it's a great way to polish the paint and prep it for a coating. My favorite is probably NSP 150. I would call that a medium cut polish, so it's capable of, I've used it to pull out 1,500 sand marks with a rotary buffer wool pad. So, how aggressive a product is always depends on the thing you're applying it with and the tool and the pad and your technique. But NSP 150, it's a good product. The abrasive technology is amazing. I'm a paint polisher. Nobody knows me in the industry as Mike, the carpet cleaner. I'm a paint polisher.
Yeah.
One time, my friend Joe Fernandez, back before Facebook and Instagram and Periscope and everything else was invented, we just had the discussion forums, and there was a forum called Autopia. And Joe Fernandez, who goes by Superior Shine, and he's a very respected detailer. I've known him for 30 plus years. He's also famous for buffing out those aluminum body World War II warplanes. So a lot of people might recognize the name. I sent him the link to this, so maybe he's watching. Shit, I forgot I was going with that. What was the question?
I was talking about things that you should try, for a first time.
Gotcha. Yeah. So what did that have to do with Joe Fernandez? Sometimes I get caught a little bit to come back
That's
to me.
okay.
NSP 150. It's a fine cut polish. And it'd be just those two products would be good. I think if you go to Dr. Beasley website, you can buy NSP 45, 95, and 150 as a group and save some money. Then you kind of have the collection. These are getting ready to launch. We're waiting for labels. The core cut, I would say you're safe with it on a factory finish, but a core cut plus, I'd say you better know what you're doing if you're going to start cutting with it. I've been using that with a wool pad on the rotary pulling 1,500 sanding marks out of this as I work around the car, and it does cut fast. So it's a very interesting abrasive technology. I should have an article and a video coming out on this. We're going to film and I'll write this month. And in it, I got some pictures of what the abrasive looks like under like a 2-photon microscope. So it's pretty interesting stuff. But it's like nothing else that's out there. But Dr. Beasley's, the one thing I just like to share, it's an American company. It's a small family business. And we're a manufacturer. We make all of our own products. There's no white labeling. There's nothing in a bottle with Dr. Beasley's that we bought from some other company and stuffed it in our bottle. And that is so common in the industry nowadays. And I'm not saying that the products that are made by the blenders out there are bad. I'm just saying it causes a lot of confusion because you think you're buying this, but it's actually somebody else's stuff with a different label on it. So I'm always happy to say that Dr. Beasley's is one of the makers, not one of the fakers.
Wow. Okay. Something I wanted to bring up, and then I know we're nearing towards an hour, and I really do like to try to respect people's time. And I know that you are in Florida, so I don't want to keep you too much longer, and I want to get to some questions. But something I wanted to bring up, I heard the other day on another channel, which I thought was kind of interesting is, we hear a lot about compounds and polishes, and somebody was mentioning that if you smell a compound and it burns your nose, that you shouldn't use it, that means it's not safe for paint. Is that because of the solvent? So solvents are really not safe for paint?
Yeah, so that's a rabbit hole you can go down. So anytime you smell something, what you're smelling is called the VOCs, the volatile organic compounds, the smell.
Okay.
That's why, like, if you go to Lowe's or Home Depot and you want to buy some odorless paint stripper or odorless mineral spirits, that product has been through multiple filtering processes, usually a water filtrate, where it pulls all that nasty stuff out. And then what you get left is the pure product without the VOC, so you don't smell the smell. I would think that the reputable companies on the market today are using formulas that are VOC compliant and very safe. But yeah, if you took a whiff of something and about knocked you out, I'd be very hesitant about breathing it or getting it on my skin. I just, to be honest, I can't think of too many products that are like that are out there.
Yeah.
Menzerna FG400, I always thought it smelled like gasoline, but I don't know that it was the solvent. It could have been some other characteristic of the product.
Okay. So just a few questions. Westcat wants to know, what is your favorite car that you have ever detailed?
Easily the Batmobile. I've detailed, it's one of the original Batmobiles, so it's not the new one Michael Keaton drove. It's a 1966 Ford Futura that was turned into a Batmobile. And to me, as a kid growing up watching Batman, the original Batman, and then one day being able to buff out the Batmobile, I've actually done the same Batmobile 3 times. The guy that owns it, bless his heart, he's a great guy. He owns a website called Star Car Central. And
Okay.
he's so cool. What he does is he gets together with all the guys and the girls that got the Starsky and Hutch car or the Knight Rider car. And if any kid, part of the the Make-A-Wish program, wants to go for a ride with these cars, they get the car there and take them for a ride. So it's a really cool charity. But he built this with his son himself. And they went to Canada and they got the guy that made the original molds to pull a body off the mold. He has an article about this. They had to get a Canadian truck to ship it to the border, get an American truck to ship it to the United States. Then they put it on a Continental frame. So they built this original Batmobile all by himself. The guy's got amazing talent, but he cannot touch the paint to save his life. Every time I see it, it's full of frozen scratches. That's okay. Gives me something to do.
Yeah.
So, the Batmobile.
That's very cool. I have another.
I think if you ask most car people, what are the 10 most iconic cars ever built? I think the Batmobile shows up on there. So, I think I'm in good company.
I think I would agree. Steve Rosenthal is asking, can your Core Utility Plus, can you use it for marine applications?
Yeah, actually, the Core Cut Plus is something that Jim started developing for me because I teach boat classes. And the concept originally was, instead of sanding a boat down, having an abrasive that's so strong it's a liquid sandpaper kind of, just chews through. Because what happens, a lot of people don't know this with boats. When you have a boat that's 10 years or older and it hasn't been properly maintained, the oxidation isn't topical, just on the surface. It's deep. It goes into the gel coat. And the biggest mistake boat detailers make is they grab somebody's compound, wool pad and rotary, and they buff for a section. The solvents and the oils soak into that chalky white paint and darken it. And you go, oh, look, I'm done. It's gone. The oxidation's gone, but it's not. You didn't remove it. It just looks darker, and the boat's going to turn back to how it looked in about 3 months on the water. So that's why my classes, we start out machine sanding. We just get through all that deep oxidation and dock rash and water stains and spots. And gel coats are usually anywhere from 20 to 30 mils. So you got a lot to work with. And of course, the big picture idea is then you tell the owner, hey, whatever you do, take care of it now. You didn't take care of it when you bought it. Take care of it now, because we can't keep doing this. But that
Yeah.
was kind of the original thing, was to bring out a compound that we could buff out a severely oxidized boat without having the sanding. I think it would work for that. My last two boat classes, I've had samples of the core cut here, and we have used them. They cut incredibly fast. But I don't have a perfect answer for that. A person could do it. I don't know. I'm bringing some pretty big boats. I have scheduled to bring in a 30-foot Robalo for my June boat class. That's freaking huge. Man,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a lot of work. But and it's black, but it's turned white with oxidation. That's how badly it's been neglected. So I'm pretty confident, even though we probably could chew off all the deep oxidation, we're just gonna go ahead and machine wet sand it. But the reason we're also doing that is because I always feel like my job is to show people as many things as I can. It's up to them to pick and choose what they want to use when they leave here. But one of the things that I switched over my classes is I started out showing how to machine wet sand using gear-driven orbitals, because now there's no sanding disc stalling, just like buffing pad stalling, because most sanders are free-spinning random orbital polishers, and they stall out just like a polisher does. But I switched over like 10 years ago to using the Flex Beast, the Super Beast, and the Sea Beast for our sanding of the boats. And then we switch over to the Eagle Abrasives dry sanding system after we've done a two-step machine wet sanding, and we go to dry sanding. And then people say, well, Mike, why do you do that? Well, because some of the people that take my class are going to go work on a show boat, like a show car. Maybe it's a
Yeah.
black cigarette boat. They want to get that flawless, flat, mirror finish. And dry sanding with the Eagle Abrasives does that, because gel coat isn't really flat even after you sand it. So it just helps with that to create that perfect finish. And of course, most of the people that leave, they're just going to do the Mirka Abralon and then move on to compounding and polishing. But at least when they took my class, they got to learn more skills that they might want to use in the future versus not learning it and then guessing, how do I do this? So
Yeah.
I try to put the tools and the stuff in people's hands and give them something cool to work on.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. A couple more questions. Are you a fan of rinseless wash?
Not normally, not normally. A long time ago, someone asked me about washing a car with a steam machine. And I said, if you locked me in a room with a car and I had to clean the car with the steam machine or the entire earth would blow up, then I would do it. But other than that, I'd find some other way. But what I tell people is, if you can use running water, you got more lubrication, rinsing the dirt off as you agitate it. It's always a better process. But look, if you don't have access to running water, then of course a rinseless wash will save the day.
Perfect.
I was at McGuire's when they introduced their first waterless wash, and it was about 4 or 5 years after all the people in Australia kept asking for it, because Australia was under drought conditions and nobody could wash their car. So if the government says you cannot run water in your driveway to wash your car, what are you left with? Waterless or rinseless washes.
Yeah. What is your trick for removing heavy water spots from a newer glass boat?
On a newer fiberglass boat.
I'm guessing.
Yeah. I never get asked to do that kind of stuff, but what I would do is, if the boat came in here, so newer means the hull is still shiny and pretty, because that's not the kind of boats I bring in here. If it was still shiny and pretty, you always want to follow that old saying, use the least aggressive process to get the job done. So the first thing I would try is washing it. If that didn't work, then I'd have to look at other alternatives. Most of the chemicals I've seen sold that magically remove water spots usually don't impress me. Most of the time when we talk about water spots, in fact, I'm the guy that wrote the definition. There's actually a book here. My friend Dom, who owns Dodo Boost, he wrote this book out a few years ago, and on page 39, there's a section right there where he attributes me as coming up with a lot of the terms that are used in our industry, and I have. Test spot is one that a lot of people don't know of, but it's on the index, as you've seen, Christy, on the index, how to do a test spot by hand machine. That was written in 1998. I'd challenge anybody to find the term test spot in print anywhere before this.
You coined it. That's your phrase.
Yeah. And, but I wrote an article on water spots because I've been answering questions professionally. So that means I've been paid to answer questions since 2002 when I brought up the McGuire's online discussion forum. So that means over the last 2 or 3 decades, I get a lot of questions. And when someone comes to me and says, Mike, I'm trying to remove water spots, the question is, the answer is, and here's how you do it. The follow-up question is, what kind of water spots? Is it a mineral deposit that's sitting on the surface? Is it an imprint ring that has etched the clear coat? Is it a crater that's actually now a hole in the paint? Is it a water stain because someone put a car cover on and moisture got trapped into the clear coat? I mean, what kind of spots are you talking about? But I would just have to see the boat. I don't have a good answer for that. My guess is that, and a lot of times, if someone wants it to be perfect, it's going to mean repolishing the boat. Okay, because after washing, if whatever the spots aren't gone, it's probably likely going to take a mechanical means to make them visually disappear.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Everybody wants the spray on, rinse off process. I get that. It's just not reality.
Do you believe in a true touchless wash?
No, not really. I think the chemicals they use to have a touchless wash are so harsh that it's just not good for all the different surfaces on a outside of a modern car, like plastic, vinyl, rubber, paint, the wheels, you know. But look, my son-in-law, we brought his truck down there. I think there's a live video on the Dr. Beasley's website where we did the same thing. We sanded the whole thing down, buffed it out. I go over and look at his car. It always looks amazing. For the most part, besides hand washing, he takes it through a touchless wash. So I think some are probably better than others. But here's the deal. If that's your only option, that's your only option. If your option is you go on the driveway and get a bucket with a wash mitt and wash your car, then that's a better option. If it's not your option, you're stuck with whatever you can do. And if that's a touchless wash, that's what you get. So
What about a touchless such as like Built Hammer? That
you know, I've never used the Built Hammer product, so I don't have a real world valid experience or opinion on it. I read a lot about it. It must be good. It gets a lot of airtime.
Yeah, it does. I think we have one last question, and that is, have you ever detailed a celebrity car, such as Burt Reynolds, Clint Eastwood, somebody famous?
Oh, you know, the one that most people would recognize would be George Lucas from Star Wars.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
when I was out in California, he had purchased a what's called a Mosler. I think you could probably go to Google Images and type in 2006 Mosler, add my name, Mike Phillips, and probably pull a picture of it up. I know there's a picture of it in an article I wrote called "Black is Not a Color; It's a Full-Time Job." If you type that into Google and again add my name, Mike Phillips, that article will pull up and you'll see the Mosler in there. But he had it shipped from Florida. I think this is where it was built out to a guy that some of you may recognize. The business name is called Corvette Mike. And Corvette Mike has a shop in Anaheim, somewhere in the Midwest and somewhere on the East Coast. And somehow he got my name and had me come down and buff out a bunch of black cars for him. But one of them was the Mosler for George Lucas.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
I would
Kristen,
never buff out another one. That thing has so many louvers. I had to do so much hand polishing on all the stupid louvers and well, nightmare and soft paint. So everything working against it, but it came out good. So
Kristen is saying, thank you for the multiple wash method for black cars. It's been very helpful.
So what he's talking about is, you know, years and years and years ago, there's a guy named Gary Dean that made popular the
Gary Dean.
using the rinseless wash, using the Gary Dean method. And what Gary Dean did is instead of using one big red sponge or one wash mitt, is he put like a dozen towels in there and just would wipe a panel and get rid of that towel and go to the next one, you know, dry as he's going. Well, I took and twisted that and I says, well, I don't really like doing rinseless and waterless washes. So I put 12 wash mitts into a bucket, 5-gallon bucket of soap. And I made this video washing a 1963 black Studebaker R2 supercharged that actually was at Amelia Island this weekend. I'm waiting to hear if it won any awards. But I polished it all out. Then we took it out and shot a video and I showed the multiple wash mitt methods. So you wash the roof, you're done to have a clean bucket, that mitt goes in there, and so on and so on. And that way you're not removing dirt from one area and then simply crossing your fingers, hoping and praying all of it came off and you're using the 2-bucket method, one with fresh water, one with soapy water. I quit doing that years ago. But you're hoping that all the dirt rinses off soon you wash the next panel, you don't scratch it. Well, how about just eliminate the whole potential by getting rid of the mitt and grab a fresh mitt? Or instead of using wash mitts, which a good wash mitt's like $10, use microfiber towels. Wash with a microfiber towel. Put 10 or 12 microfiber towels in a bucket. And that way you're doing everything you can to reduce the potential to put scratches in your car's paint.
That's awesome. Well, Mike, we've been on for an hour and 15 minutes. I have so enjoyed this conversation. Is there a piece of advice you can leave the chat with, whether you are a beginning detailer or a professional detailer, some bit of advice that you can give people that maybe you live by, or a quote that you've heard that you often think of?
That is a good question. I usually say the most important tip is inspecting everything that's going to touch the paint. But besides that, always treat people like they're the king or the queen. Always treat people really nice. Maybe someone brings you a car and your price is too high, so they leave, but you were really nice. When they go to the next detailer, they're not really nice. They're going, I like your price better, but I like that person better. I'm going back. So just always take the high road. In the Bible, I think it's in the book of Matthew, it's called the Golden Rule. Treat people the way you would want to be treated. And you can't help but be successful.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's all. If we have no more questions, Mike, again, thank you for being here. Thank you, chat, for sticking around. Did you have something else that you wanted to share?
One more thing.
Go for it.
This is the first book I wrote in 1998. And these are all the other books I've written over the years. So this was The Art of Detailing, The Complete Guide. These are used in trade colleges and all kinds of places. Here's one for the Flex Beast. Here's one I wrote for Rupes. And then one of the only guys in the world that's ever wrote a book on how to detail a boat. This includes machine sanding, hand sanding, everything. And these are all out of print, which I'm really happy because they're pretty much outdated. But I have a new book in the works. So if, I know everything's online nowadays, but some people actually like a book. You take it out the garage, flat, read the thing and do the thing. So I have a new book coming out.
And do we have a date on when that will be and where we can find it?
My friend Yancey, I'll be working with him because he's got I write all the text and take the pictures, then he lays it all out in some fancy Adobe software. And then also, if anybody's watching this and they're interested, I have a detailing class coming up at the American Muscle Car Museum. My co-instructor for that will be Jason Rose from Rupes.
Oh, nice.
I've already got 6 amazing cars for that class. We're going to detail 4 cars on Friday, and I'm bringing in 2 cars to learn how to hand sand and machine sand. And here's the cars for sanding: a 1968 Camaro and a 1962 Chevy, both with custom paint jobs and lots of orange peel. So if you look around at all the classes where you can learn sanding, you're usually going to be working on a test panel or a demo hood. Again, I bring in the real deal. And I don't even live in Melbourne where the museum's at, but I've already got cars up there lined up where people are going to let absolute strangers sand them down and buff it out. And the paint correction cars, I got a 1950 Chevy pickup street rod black. I got a 72 Cadillac Eldorado black. I got a 1961 Chevy Impala SS blue.
Wow.
And I got a 1992 black Mercedes Benz. All of them have base coat, clear coat paints. All of them are completely hacked up. I got the pictures on my own forum. You can go up and find them. But I bring in cars that are jacked up for people to train on. I don't bring in something like that Camaro, that Mustang looks like. What's funny is because I always see people make these little snide comments to my post. Gee, Mike, why don't you bring in something that needs some work? And I'm like, dude, you're not even here. You can't see what I can see. Well, I've been doing this for so long. Why would I jeopardize my reputation to bring in a shiny, glossy car for people to learn paint correction on?
Yeah.
Anyway, that class is coming up May 2nd and 3rd in Melbourne, Florida at the American Muscle Car Museum. The cool factor about that is after the Saturday class, we get a private tour of the entire collection by Ed Diedick, an alumni student of mine. The owner of the collection made him take my class before I let him polish on the cars. And he knows everything about every car in there. There's more Yanko muscle cars. There's more GT40s. There's more everything. So it's going to be it's like a one-off chance to see this thing and have a private tour. And then my boat class is coming up in June. It's June 2nd, 3rd. It's a Saturday, Sunday class. And then my last class for this year is in September. I think it's around the 3rd weekend of September.
Okay.
And when you sign up, I will send you an email that gives you all the information you know. I got an article I wrote called Airports, Hotels, and My Favorite Places to Eat. So I've already done the work for you to get out to Florida. I got the airports, their codes, how far they are from us, all the local hotels, their website, their phone number, their address, how far they are from the shop. So I really try to make it easy to get out to Stewart.
That's awesome. And then you can sign up for all of these classes on Dr. Beasley's website.
Yep. And I always throw my personal cell out there. If anybody ever has any questions, just shoot me a text or give me a call on that 760-515-0444.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, you guys. And again, everybody in the chat, don't forget at thehouseofrags.com, there is a flash sale going on. You can get a premium chenille wash mitt for $2.99, guys. Don't forget, Kataba has dropped at the House of Rags. We have Garage Therapy, Josh V's Foam Cannon. Please use Chris 10 to save you some change. Thank you guys for being here, and we're out.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.